Greetings, my name is Ryan Nix. I'm a solutions architect with Amazon Web Services. I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about RDS for DB2 and replicas. DB2 is the latest engine addition to the Amazon Relational Database Service, RDS. Recently, we've added in replica capabilities, and I want to take a moment to explore the two different kinds of replicas you can create with RDS for DB2. The majority of customers are going to start off in a single region and deploy their database across multiple availability zones. So we would see RDS for DB2 being deployed in that environment. Replicas allow me to create an exact copy of that database for various different reasons. So the first replica we're going to have a look at is the ability to create a read replica. Read replicas are great for scaling out read performance, where I can offload some of the read-focused workloads of applications. So I can have analytical workloads talking to my read replica, while other components of my application that are transactional focused, write into the primary system. We can have up to 3 replicas, so it is not entirely uncommon to see a read replica in one AZ and then another read replica being created in an adjacent availability zone. These read replicas are synchronizing via the transactions that are played into the database. So as I write into this database, I'm periodically updating my read replica, and these are going to be taking advantage of IBM's HADR technology to facilitate that replication. With read replicas, the focus is really being able to offload that read capability or those read workloads and gain a scale out performance over there. With DB2 or RDS for DB2, I have an additional replica type which we don't see with a lot of the other engines on RDS. And this is what we refer to as a standby replica. Standby replicas are not there to cater for read performance scale out, but rather to protect against data level corruptions or something that could happen within the database where I want to be able to roll back. So really focusing on replicating the data out of my RDS instance over here, potentially into a completely separate DR location in a different region. So what I have the ability to do is create a standby replica. Again, this is going to constitute one of my 3 replicas that I can create with my RDS instance, and I have the ability again to take advantage of IBM's HADR, and HADR is going to facilitate pulling the information from there. This is going to be a synchronous replication over here, especially if you're going to an adjacent region. A couple of things to bear in mind with standby replicas is that this database, even though it's an exact copy of my original database, it is in a standby or a constant recovering state. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking the transaction logs that are coming into my writable database there, and I'm periodically replaying those into my standby replica. So while this is in its standby state, I cannot interact with it, I can't query it, I can't do any sort of DML changes with it. So bear that in mind. This is not something that we're going to use as a scale out for performance. It's in a constant recovering standby state. What I can do is I can change its settings and I can flip it into a writable database. But when I do that, I break this synchronization and I have to reestablish that. So this is think of it as a database in the side, replica on the sideline that is there, that should I need to, I can fail over to that. A couple of things to bear in mind with this replication is there are a few things that the replication does not replicate, and this is not wildly different from other replication technologies out there. So one of the things that is not replicated is the storage classes within the database. So if we see the addition or if we see changes of the storage classes over here, we would essentially have to suspend the replication and update this database to have those new storage classes, and then reinstantiate the replication. The replication itself is really looking at the transaction log, so it's not going to bring those storage classes across. Extended tables are not going to be replicated, and something that is very common for this type of technology is stored procedures are not going to be replicated as part of this. So be aware of all of these. You either want to have those synchronized before establishing the replication, or that's something that you're going to have to add in as an addition to the database once you've transitioned it out of being standby into a writable database, and you can add those functions in. The other thing is, because you are constantly replicating between these two databases, the standby database will hinder you from doing some things within your RDS instance. Primarily, you're not going to be able to create or drop new databases. So if you add another database into the schema over there, that is not automatically going to be part of this replication. Likewise, you can't go and drop the database that you are replicating from. Native backup and restore options, you can back up, but you're not going to be able to perform a native restore that is using the restore capabilities from within Db2 as an engine itself. You're still going to have those RDS sort of recovery options available to you. Just a couple of things to be aware of when we are looking at standby replicas. Not wildly different if you look at relational databases in general, but now we've got these two replica components available to RDS for Db2 customers. So whether you want to be able to scale out your read performance, or whether you want to implement a standby solution to protect yourself against potential accidental changes of data within the organization and roll back from those. For more information on this, do go and have a look at the documentation for Db2 for RDS. It guides you through the specifics of how to implement each of these types of replicas, as well as the parameter settings that are relevant within the database, and any other additional limitations and nuances and considerations to take into account. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope this has been informative.